Mike, we are now rolling. It says live, but we're not live anywhere. It's just you and me. So I've got Mike Arnold with me from Flo Water. I am very excited to sit down with you today. Um, let's just jump into it. So Flo Water, I it's very simple product. I was trying to understand like how it all works, where it all came from. So I just love to hear your perspective, like what is Flow Water? Give the people like a 30 to 60-second rundown of what it is and what you guys do.
Sure. Yeah. So FloWater, the overall mission is really, providing the world's best water anywhere consumers work, rest, and play. The company was founded back in 2013, and I would say the mission has played a key role over time with the importance of what we're all trying to do at FloWater, and that is stopping the use of single-use plastic bottles from entering our oceans, rivers, lakes, and landfills. So to date, at the time that we're talking here, we've saved over 330 million single-use plastic bottles from entering the environment. And so over time, we've built a great team. The company started with a B2B focus. And just this year, we launched with consumers as well. So FloWater is available at schools, hotels, gyms, offices, everywhere, anywhere, any setting where you need safe group hydration.
Okay.
And now in the home, so there's a lot of FloWater fans out there. There's a tribe of followers, over the years, and they're very excited to be able to experience FloWater in their home as well.
Yeah. Do you know off the top of your head how many bottles of water you've saved? I saw like 260 million. Is that close?
A little over 330 million at this point.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
I was kind of close.
Yeah. Well, million. It's a lot.
I was off by like 100 million, but
that's okay.
We'll call it close enough.
Right.
No, that's interesting. So, are you guys venture backed at all, or did this all just start with someone's idea and they put together a prototype? What was the first product rolled out?
The
I
first,
guess is what I'm getting at.
yes, the first product was our refill station, and so the bottle refill station has gone through several rounds of innovation and optimization, over time, and it's really an interesting product from a standpoint of our immediate competitors, the space, the category, are traditional water fountains or traditional water coolers, and they don't look very exciting, right? They're not a brand, right? It's just the thing that kind of sits in the corner that you may want to touch or not touch or interact based on kind of the environment you're in or how clean or dirty the environment is. And then here comes FloWater, so it almost looks like new technology, right? It's bright, it's clean,
like a spaceship almost.
It's like a spaceship, cool. Yeah, and it looks nice. And so, really nice environments, hotels, offices, premium gyms, all gyms really, but it fits right into almost any environment. It fits any container. Right? People who have refill stations in their home, I mean, you can put a cooking pot in there and fill up with FloWater. It'll fit any bottle size. It has advanced osmosis. It removes everything, and it also adds back trace minerals and electrolytes. And so the water tastes crisp, pure, refreshing. And the best part is our refill stations are just tapped into existing water lines. So it's taking your existing tap water and then transforming it into FloWater. And and so the user experience is great. And, very recently in 2020, our latest innovation plans, we now have touchless technology, which you might imagine is where everyone's going, and that is here to stay. No one wants to touch anything anymore. Water fountains across the country have been turned off, and that's presented a really nice opportunity for us. Schools, especially schools, any environment with group hydration that needs to open and safely reopen needs a hydration option where you can fill up and have it be a completely hands-free experience.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your marketing strategy before COVID hit? Because I know we talked very briefly beforehand, but I'm going to assume that a lot has changed in the last 12 months or so for you guys. It sounds
Mhm.
like you were going directly B2B for your initial marketing of Flow Water, but would love to hear what you were doing before COVID hit, that little transition period where you probably paused and were like, holy cow, what do we do now?
Mhm.
And then would love to hear a little bit more about what the future holds and what you're doing right now
Sure,
on the marketing
absolutely.
front.
Yeah, I mean, that's a relevant question for any business right now, especially any B2B business.
Mhm.
So originally, our CEO and co-founder is a gentleman named Rich Rasgatis. He goes by Raz. No one calls him Rich. That actually sounds really weird. If you met him and talked to him, he's definitely a Raz.
Yeah.
And so he had a strategy initially, which is, I think, a little bit different on the B2B front. And his strategy was to get flow water refill stations into high impact, high visibility areas and let the people in those areas experience flow water, knowing that they're going to love the product. Flow people love the water. And I know that may sound weird because you're probably sitting there going, well, water's kind of water. It is and it isn't. When all contaminants have been removed and the water is being dispensed, chilled to 42 degrees, people find out that they love it.
Right.
And so, Flow Water was put into headquarters, at Hyatt, at Google, at Hulu,
Mhm.
Red Bull, PlayStation, Microsoft, Club Pilates, all of these big brands, right? And so, the people that were associated with those brands then became associated with Flow Water.
So, Mike, were they selling the FloWater units to those brands, or were they just asking them, "Hey, can we put this in your place and you don't have to pay for anything? It'll be a premium water service. We'll take care of all the expenses." Or are they selling them?
No, we were selling them, and so businesses can either purchase up front, or they can lease a flow water refill station,
Mm,
but because we have a really cool looking product, and we have and the water that comes out of it is great. We have a lot of mechanisms like free trial programs where we'll come in and we'll install a flow water refill station, knowing that those employees, students, gym members, or hotel guests are going to end up loving it, and the flow water is going to turn into a purchase after the
mhm,
initial, kind of free trial program. And so we were able to associate ourselves with these other big, progressive, well-known, well-thought-of brands, which delivered a lot of great PR, which kind of continued to accelerate, the awareness curve. And then we entered into events, and it's really interesting. So when you think about events and companies or sponsors associated with an event, those companies are typically paying to have a presence at an event. If you think about an athletic competition like CrossFit Games,
yeah.
you have so many nutrition brands that are paying to have a booth and introduce the product to those athletes. Events for Flow Water is revenue generating. So we're paid to hydrate the event. And so we have our product there. It
Yeah.
looks great, right? It's dispensing water. We're getting more fans. And so now we are the hydration provider of choice at the CrossFit Games, at Coachella, at Dreamforce. And so while events have been disrupted in 2020, obviously, we're finding they're slowly coming back on. Touchless is obviously very key in that environment. But events and brand association and getting our refill stations into the right environments played a really key role very, very early on in the life of the Flow Water company.
Hmm. And then this COVID thing hit, and so I'm gonna assume that a lot of your pre-existing strategies will probably continue forward. But I mean, if things start to come back, but I feel like it's going to be a slow burn with people coming back into offices and high impact areas like you guys were targeting. So, really curious to hear what you're doing to shift right now and what things you're learning about your marketing function and how things have changed over the last 12 months for you, because we're coming up on our 1 year COVID reunion in
Yeah.
March here. So curious to hear that from you, Mark or Mike.
Yes. It's been an interesting ride. I think we all remember, the Friday in March where, the NCAA basketball tournament was canceled. Tom
Mm-hmm.
Hanks had COVID. What in the
Mm-hmm.
world is happening? I have two kids in school, elementary school and middle school, and they're now home indefinitely. Like, what in the world is happening? And so when you think about FloWater from a B2B perspective, that was a crazy time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our core verticals, hospitality, gyms, schools, offices, all shut down. And so we had, there's a couple of paths a company can take, at that moment. One would be to kind of, especially in the startup world, and we're fairly well established.
Yeah, I'd say so too. Yeah.
Fairly well established, but we still are seeking funding, and we're still growing, and we have very aggressive growth plans. But our core verticals are now shut down, and so a company can either kind of hold on to cash, hunker down, try to preserve and extend the runway, or you can get aggressive. And we became very aggressive in what we
Thank you for
did.
doing that. I'm really excited to hear this now because
Sure.
I totally agree with you. There's two things you can do. You can either play defense or you can go on the offense. And I was just talking to a company up here in Minnesota. They're an apparel company called Unreal, and a lot of their business was just wiped out. Like they couldn't do anything because there weren't going to be any in-person games or events, or they couldn't sell anything. So I'm really excited to hear what you did, because they completely transitioned their entire business to be e-commerce, and it's gone really well for them. And it seems like things are going well for you. So I'm going to give it back to you, Mike.
Yes, absolutely. And so, when I joined the company, the consumer side of things in the introduction of Flo Water into consumer homes was a thing it was on the plan, it was on the innovation plan, it was within the 5-year plan of the company, but it was still kind of out there a little bit. And when we got aggressive, we're like, let's open up consumer now. And so, from that Friday in March, within 4 weeks, we had a consumer website up and running. And so initially, we started offering our FloWater refill stations for the homes. And it was a quick scramble. We had to kind of beg, borrow, and steal to find some homes here in Denver that would let us come in and do a shoot and get images and videos of the refill station in a nice home environment. But we spun up the website in 4 weeks, and we've sold, tens of thousands of dollars of FloWater refill stations to residences at this point. And that was quite a thing, because it's a very premium product. It's a high-end product. And so we had to come up with, okay, you could purchase it. You could have, again, a monthly lease plan that would cost about as much as a standard utility for your home. But when you think about water and getting your family to drink more water, I have young kids. I'm yelling at, I live in Denver. It's a really dry environment. I'm asking them all day long to please drink more water. It drives me insane. Because it's good for them.
You're being a great salesman for FloWater, though.
Yeah, but for any parent, right? I mean, the beverages that your kids can drink, there's healthy options and there's not so healthy options, and you want to see your kids drink more water. And so we started off selling refill stations to the home, and then we made a pretty quick pivot, and we are now offering a faucet filter attachment.
Oh, interesting.
Yep. And so, think in the category spaces of a Pure or Brita, but it's a FloWater experience. So again, all of those people that we introduced FloWater to at all those businesses, at all of those events, and became fans of FloWater, then we had a pretty quick activation period where we're like, hey, you can have this in your home now. And so now we offer a faucet filter. We have the refill stations, and very shortly we're also going to offer FloWater in a ready to drink beverage in a eco-friendly aluminum bottle. And so, and so the analogy in my mind, as this has been a really fast cycle of commercialization
Yep.
is Yeti, kind of to some extent. Not
Okay.
everybody can afford, their extra large size cooler. Can they afford the tumbler? Can they afford the over the shoulder cooler pack? Right. So people can get, yeah, exactly. And so people can get access to the technology, but at the price point that makes sense for them and their family. And so FloWater is offering this, that we have our on the go, ready to drink beverage. We have our faucet filter attachment, and we have a refill station. And there are more products in the innovation plan. But, wrapping 2020, we look back and we say, we had a great year. We managed to kind of protect our core business with a lot of hard work and grit and effort from the sales team, and we opened up with consumers. So for us, it was a very successful year.
Good, good. And I want to pause here and dig into that transition a little bit because my assumption would be that your marketing strategy and connecting with the people you want to connect with in order to sell your product on the B2B side was very different than what you're doing with your in-home flow waters, and then also your the faucet attachment is what you're calling it. I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
The faucet
I
filter.
I would assume that the two strategies for those are pretty different. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that and how you went about designing your marketing strategy for the in-home flow water products, I'll call them.
hmm Yeah, so you're 100% correct. If we're doing a pitch to a business, what we want to focus on is positive outcomes, right?
Hmm.
In use cases. So we know, when we get a new business partner, a new customer on the B2B side, we will follow up and we'll do surveys. We'll get testimonials. We'll say, how are your guests, enjoying flow water? How are your employees enjoying flow water? We know when flow water is installed in one of these places, um, people are going to drink more water, less sugary beverages. They're saving single-use plastic bottles, which is great PR for the company. There's actually a counter on the refill station that shows you how many plastic bottles you've
Hmm.
saved. And so, that's one pitch. Now, when we talk about consumers, we focus on the quality of the water. You know, there's a lot of surveys out there that talk about people's reluctance or fear of drinking tap water for the contaminants that may or may not be in there.
Hmm.
A standard Google search will really scare you. Here in Denver, the actual city of Denver started to distribute water pitcher filters to residences, hundreds of thousands of water pitcher filters, because um, their their water distribution,
It's a little scary.
yes, is in an infrastructure with lead pipes that are going to take a very long time to update, fix, build a new infrastructure, and they know that there's lead in the water. And so you think about Flint, you think about some other areas of the country where this is a pretty scary thing. And so FloWater, in that case, we very much focused on the transformation of tap water into FloWater, and the removal of contaminants and making sure that it is safe for your family. And the fact that it tastes great will hopefully get more people drinking water in the household. So those are, as you might suspect, and you were correct, those are two very different pitches.
Yeah. So which I would assume that the platforms or the channels of communication would be a little bit different for both of those two. Did you notice a dichotomy in those two things where the platforms or the ways that you're communicating with the B2B clients were different than the at home clients, I'll call them?
Just in terms of the go-to-market strategy.
Right, right. So example, like if you're trying to sell to a B2B client and it's a big company, you might go to LinkedIn and try to find somebody that works in X role at Y company.
Mhm.
Whereas if you are trying to sell to people in home, you might want to just go on Google and run a bunch of ads against people that live in a specific area and try to get it to grow there. Would love to hear a little bit more about that.
Sure.
Mainly on the consumer side, but also on the B2B side, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. No, you're exactly right. On the B2B side, we have resellers, we have distributors, we have national accounts, we have kind of independent mom and pop businesses. And so LinkedIn is a tactic. Paid search is certainly a very productive tactic. You have to really be dialed in for paid search because those are obviously, those leads come with very high intent. People are searching for safe group hydration options for their business. When it comes
That
to
is very
consumer,
specific.
yeah, yeah, and when it comes to consumer, paid social starts to play a role, and a very key role. So we can target the household profile that we want. We can target areas where we know tap water quality is very poor, and we have the claims and the messaging fairly dialed in. So it's serving up that message to like-minded people, and it's my job to find them in a very efficient manner.
Cool. Have you found a spot where they're sitting around Oasis waiting for you to come to them yet?
It's really it's interesting because geography plays such a key role. And
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that. I'm curious about how geography might fit into this whole thing.
yeah, and it's there's a lot of reasons why tap water may not be pleasant. Some of it may be the natural source of the water. So people in Florida, their natural source is an underground aquifer, and
Mm,
so that tap water it just has a pretty strong sulfur aroma and taste, and
mhm.
it's rough, and so in Florida we hit taste messaging. If again, I love all these markets. I don't mean to speak poorly about these markets, but then, if you go out to Phoenix, they have a lot of dissolved solids in their water. And it has a pretty bad taste and has some concerns for entirely different reasons. And so the messaging out there is removal of contaminants.
Mm.
And so it depends on what the issue is for that geography, and we can dial in the message accordingly because the people that are home in the households, the consumers, they're already experiencing it and they're already aware of the issues. So your insight's already there. When you present them with these messages, like you're going to get the immediate head nod that like, yes, this is the issue where I live.
Hmm, cool. What's been your biggest struggle the last 12 months as a marketer? Um, Aside from like COVID happening, obviously that's probably one of the biggest struggles, but there's been a lot of things that have happened because of that. So would love to hear what has been one of your bigger pain points in the last 12 months or so, either caused by COVID or just in general.
Um, you know, there's been a couple of things. One that's more of a marketing challenge. One that's just more of a company challenge. And our team was already pretty split. We have a pretty strong presence in California. Our headquarters is in Denver. We Zoom and Slack and do all that stuff all day long. But
Right.
our HQ here in Denver was a pretty fun place to be.
Hmm.
And you have everybody working towards a specific mission, bought into the mission, excited about Flow Water, and we love being together. And so we haven't really been back to the office since March. And so staying connected, staying motivated as a team, making sure people are engaged, making sure everyone's up to date on what they need to be up to. I mean, that's a challenge for any company. I think we've been doing a pretty good job there. From a marketing perspective, we have, uh, you know, for Flow Water as a brand, we have one set of social channels. And so it's really been a challenge to think about tone in messaging and priority of communication when you're serving both B2B customers that are following you, and now you have moms and dads in the household, that are following you. And so
Well,
thinking
and
about,
the interesting thing for you guys, Mike, is that sometimes those two people might be the same person.
right, right. Yeah, you're exactly right. But they've come to Flow Water and bought in on Flow Water for very different reasons. And so when you think about your content strategy and important messaging points, and again, priority of communication, how you balance B2B overtones with B2C overtones, all within the same feed. Where you put your PR resources, where you put your dollar resources, and where you focus your team. You've got to be crystal clear on the priorities because you have a spectrum of marketing challenges there, and there may be 100 things to do on any given day, but what are the 10 most important? And you got to be very disciplined about how you tackle that, because you could quickly have things become very inefficient or working on smaller items, and prioritization becomes critical.
Yeah. One of the things that I've realized is a lot of things shifted from in person to digital. Um, there was obviously an adaptation period, but people started getting a lot more. I'll just call them communications broadly through digital channels, and I think it created a lot of white noise. And I'm going to call it like lead fatigue or client fatigue, but with more messaging that we sent out on different things, we noticed that there was less engagement just across the board between March and the end of the year. Did you recognize a similar trend, or maybe an opposite trend with your communications? And then, if so, was there anything that you did to like quantitatively measure user fatigue or engagement throughout the this last year?
We didn't quantitatively measure it, but I sure felt it.
Yeah,
Um,
I did too. Same here. We didn't. Yeah, same. Go ahead.
and especially if you think about on our business side and our core verticals, they're dealing with much bigger problems. You know,
Yeah.
Schools have shut off water fountains. They need a water solution, but they're also dealing with the fact that maybe 20% of their kids aren't joining the Zoom classes online,
Yeah.
or how do they get school meals in the hands of kids? They've got really big issues to deal with, and while our issue is certainly important and critical once the schools reopen, um, we may be down the list of priorities a little bit. So traditional tactics such as email campaigns, or cold calls, the response rates just dropped.
They plummeted.
They plummeted, and it was interesting. We also went through a period there where, as part of our PR activity, we like to get our CEO and co-founder on a podcast tour, and the number of downloads for our targeted podcasts were way down. And people
Hmm.
stopped because, right? I mean, this better than anybody. People
Mhm.
are listening in their cars on their commutes to work, and so when you're at home and you're trying to do work, it's kind of hard to stay engaged in a podcast while you're trying to work. So we saw metrics across the board, kind of decrease and plummet, as you say, and we had to switch up, our tactics a little bit. In a weird way, some of them became more traditional. Direct mail, right? It's crazy.
Yep.
Getting
I
to,
don't think it's crazy.
yeah,
I don't think it's crazy.
yeah, and um, making sure you can get your message into the door and at least ensure someone has eyeballs on it. Maybe a more efficient tactic and have a better ROI than your 14th cold email that goes out in a specific email campaign where you've never had a response. And so you have to start to kind of open up the playbook a little bit, get it, on the digital side, get even more targeted, and do a lot of test and learn. Right, you're back to A/B testing. What geographies, what businesses, what messaging, what works, and do your best to uncover those insights and scale it as quickly as possible.
Hmm. Yeah, I just think it's a really interesting part of like a normal business cycle. I'm sure over time, a lot of the channels that were probably working for you guys and a lot of other companies would dry up, and it would be more of a slow burn. But even though it was a crazy year and it sucked for a lot of people, I think it's a really fun time to be in business because you have
Mhm.
to be able to think on your feet and learn and adapt and play the same game, but on a very, very different playing field. So I think it's been an interesting year for sure, but
Yeah.
companies like FloWater have definitely adapted, and it seems like things are going really well for you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting if you're somewhat lucky with the circumstances. Some businesses have done obviously incredibly well this year, just
Zoom.
from where the,
Zoom's done pretty well.
yeah, Zoom, any home improvement company. I mean, it's incredible. Like,
Lumber shortages everywhere right now.
yeah, yeah. If you wanted somebody to come in and fix something in your house, that may not be happening until 6, 7 months down the road. For us, it was really a key example of that is, again, water fountains have been turned off everywhere, and so where before that would have been a pitch about the quality of the water, the removal of contaminants, why flow water is a better experience. Now they're just shut off, and so as an example, we just signed up a school district where we placed over 130 refill stations, and
Wow.
that school used CARES Act funding to pay for the flow water.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, very interesting scenarios like that. So it's been challenging. Back in March, April, May, it was tough. It was a tough climb out, but we've been fortunate, and this environment definitely presented some opportunities.
Cool. Yeah, you guys have been doing a really good job adapting. I'd be remiss if I didn't share this idea I had with you. I don't know why it popped in my head, but when I was probably like 4, we went on a road trip up to Canada and went to the top of a glacier and had glacier water, which is like the purest water in the world. As you mentioned, 42 degrees is a very nice water
Yep.
temperature to be drinking. It just tastes so crisp. You guys should bring a FloWater machine to the top of a glacier and pour a glass of water and drink it. And that might be too much, but I think it'd be kind of interesting to do.
Yeah,
Um,
that would definitely be interesting for PR play. That's for sure.
yeah, yeah. Take it as you will. I'll let you chew on that one for a little.
Yeah, I like where your head's at.
But we're getting pretty close to time here. So, Mike, I want to hand it back over to you and give you the floor to share any advice or any final parting words you have with myself or everybody out there that's listening to finding your niche.
Sure. Yeah. I think one of the things I wanted to address really is for people kind of just starting out in their career. What has worked well for me has been and this may sound a little bit cliche up front, but is following your interest and your passion. And what I mean by that is I've had a pretty interesting career path. I was in the military.
I agree.
And when I got out of the military, I didn't know a whole lot about the private sector or business. And so in my mind, I was like, I want to go work for Procter & Gamble, because in my mind, I was like, they're gonna teach me and train me up and let me understand the world of business in the best possible way. And at that time they tended to hire a lot of junior military officers, that were entering the private sector. And so I was from Ohio. I went back to Ohio, worked at P&G. I started in market research and then quickly moved on to the brand side. And what I thought came true, right? I mean, they taught you the process of kind of classical marketing. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I was like, my wife and I were like, well, we love the Midwest, but we've kind of seen everything the Midwest has to offer. And so
it's pretty much the same everywhere.
Exactly. And
I'm a Midwest guy. I can say that.
Yeah, me too. And then I went out to Colorado for business, and I was like, what is up with this place? I mean, it is sunshine, it is mountains,
so nice.
It is low humidity. And I got hooked on Colorado, and then my passion area became Colorado and hiking the mountains and all the fun things you can do outdoors. And so my wife and I decided to move to Colorado. And I took a job with a B2B company at the time where I didn't know much about them, but I wanted to get to Colorado. And I did that job for a couple of years. But when I wasn't in the office, I was really enjoying myself. So I was happy. And then that company decided to start a brand new consumer brand called Ascent Protein, and it was sports nutrition. I love sports nutrition. I love anything that involves athletics or sport. Food and bev nutrition is phenomenal. And so I got to create a brand from scratch. And I did that, for 5 years, scaled it, grew it. And then FloWater came along, and it was another small, aggressive, fast-moving team that had done some amazing things, but was again very mission-driven. And I thought back to my Procter and Gamble days, where at the time that I left, Procter and Gamble was very top-heavy. At that point, if you were a brand manager, you might have to do 4 brand manager jobs to get the next level up. And I was on my 3rd one. And I heard that I may have had a promotional opportunity. And that promotional opportunity, say hypothetically, was Bounty paper towels, $1 billion brand, and then I thought to myself, could I wake up every day and think about how to make a better paper towel? I'm like, I think we might be good there. I think we solved it. And
they did. I think they did.
Yeah,
I think they did.
Yeah. And so, instead of taking that path, I followed my passion for scenery and outdoors in Colorado. That led to a personal passion in sports nutrition and being very mission driven, to the point where, we're working nights and weekends and it's fun and it's not a job. And then that led to FloWater, very mission driven, and here I am. So it wasn't a specific thing all the way through. It was wherever you're at in your point in life, what's most important to you, whether it's a title, a geography, a job type, whatever. Follow it, because that, I think you're going to perform better and you're going to excel and you're going to be fully engaged if you're personally interested in it.
Cool. Perfect. That is great advice, Mike. And I will add on to that by just saying, do that. It definitely seems like the right way to go. And I feel like one of the only things that's holding people back from doing something that they're really passionate about or they really enjoy doing is this fear that they might fail. But you can fail at doing something you don't like too. So you might as well give something you do like a shot. I think that's a Jim Carrey quote. Maybe.
Well put.
Yeah. But we'll end it at that. This has been just a great conversation. If you want to stick around for a minute or two after we go offline here, I'd be happy to chat. But sure. Mike, thanks again for coming on today, talking a little bit about marketing and everything that's going on at FloWater.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jake. Much appreciated. I had a good time.
Right on.